Martin Luther King Jr. was born on January 15, 1929, in Atlanta, Georgia, to Reverend Martin Luther King Sr. and Alberta Williams King. His legal name at birth was Michael King. His father, who changed his own name from Michael to Martin Luther, later said that the name Michael was recorded incorrectly. Martin Luther attended segregated public schools in Georgia, graduating from high school at the age of 15. He received the BA degree in 1948 from Morehouse College, a distinguished Negro institution of Atlanta, from which both his father and grandfather had graduated. After 3 years of theological studies at Crozer Theological Seminary in Pennsylvania, he was awarded the BD in 1951. With a fellowship won at Crozer, he enrolled in graduate studies at Boston's University, completing his residence for the doctorate in 1953 and receiving the degree in 1955. In Boston, he met and married Coretta Scott, a young woman of uncommonly intellectual and artistical attainments. 2 sons and 2 daughters were born into the family. They became the parents of 4 children: Yolanda King, Martin Luther King III, Dexter Scott King, and Baroness King. In 1954, Martin Luther King became pastor of the Dexter Avenue Baptist Church in Montgomery, Alabama. King was, by this time, a member of the Executive Committee of National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, the leading organization of its kind in the nation. He was ready, then, early in December 1955, to accept the leadership of the first great Negro nonviolent demonstration of contemporary times in the United States, the Montgomery Bus Boycott. The boycott lasted 382 days. On December 21, 1956, after the Supreme Court of the United States had declared unconstitutional the laws requiring segregation on buses, Negroes and whites rode the buses as equals. During these days of boycott, King was arrested, his home was bombed, he was subject to personal abuse, but at the same time, he emerged as a Negro leader of the first rank. In 1957, he was elected president of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, an organization formed to provide new leadership for the now burgeoning civil rights movement. The ideals for this organization he took from Christianity, its operational techniques from Gandhi. In the 11-year period between 1957 and 1968, King traveled over 6 million miles and spoke over 2,500 times, appearing wherever there was injustice, protest, and action. And meanwhile, he wrote 5 books, as well as numerous articles. King, representing the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, was among the leaders of the so-called Big Six civil rights organizations, who were instrumental in the organization of the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom, which took place on August 28, 1963. The primary logistical and strategic organizer was King's colleague, Bayard Rustin. For King, this role was another which courted controversy, since he was one of the key figures who acceded to the wishes of President John F. Kennedy in changing the focus of the march. Kennedy initially opposed the march outright because he was concerned it would negatively impact the drive for passage of civil rights legislation. However, the organizers were firm that the march would proceed. With the march going forward, the Kennedys decided it was important to work to ensure its success. President Kennedy was concerned the turnout would be less than 100,000. Therefore, he enlisted the aid of additional churches leaders and the UAW union to help mobilize demonstrators for the cause. The march originally was conceived as an event to dramatize the desperate condition of blacks in southern U.S. and an opportunity to place organizers' concerns and grievances squarely before the seat of power in the nation's capital. Organizers intend to denounce the federal government for its failure to safeguard the civil rights and physical safety of civil rights workers and blacks. However, the group acquiesced to the presidential pressure and influence, and the event ultimately took on a far less strident tone. The march did, however, make specific demands: an end to racial segregation in public schools, meaningful civil rights legislation, including a law to prohibit and racial discrimination in employment, protection of civil rights workers from police brutality, a $2 minimum wage for all workers, and self-government for Washington, D.C. Despite tensions, the march was a resounding success. More than 250,000 people of diverse ethnicities attended the event, sprawling from the steps of the Lincoln Memorial into the National Mall and around the reflecting pool. At the time, It was the largest gathering of protesters in Washington, D.C. history. King delivered a 17-minute speech, later known as I Have a Dream. In the speech's most famous passage, King said,
"So even though we face the difficulties of today and tomorrow, I still have a dream. It is a dream deeply rooted in the American dream. I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. I have a dream that one day on the red hills of Georgia, the sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners will be able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood. I have a dream that one day, even the state of Mississippi, a state sweltering with the heat of injustice, sweltering with the heat of oppression, will be transformed into an oasis of freedom and justice. I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today
At the age of 35, Martin Luther King Jr. was the youngest man to have received the Nobel Peace Prize. When notified of his selection, he announced that he would turn over the prize money of $54,123 to the veterans of the civil rights movement. On the evening of April 4th, 1968, while standing on the balcony of his motel room in Memphis, Tennessee, where he was to lead a protest march in sympathy with the striking garbage workers of that city, he was assassinated. Immediately following the shooting, officers rushed out from the station to the motel. Merrill McCullough, an undercover police officer, was the first person to administer first aid to King. The antagonism between King and the FBI, the lack of an all-points bulletin to find the killer, and the police presence nearby led to the speculation that the FBI was involved in the assassination. At the White House Rose Garden on November 2, 1983, President Ronald Reagan signed a bill creating a federal holiday to honor King. Observed for the first time on January 20, 1986, it is called Martin Luther King Jr. Day. Following President George H. W. Bush's 1992 proclamation, the holiday is observed on the third Monday of January each year, near the time of King's birthday. Also, more than 730 cities in the United States have streets named after King. He was a great man and an influential leader who we all must remember. Stay tuned for more history, and God bless you.